So the next talk will be by Scot Rafkin, and he will talk about the in situ determination of surface volatile composition and abundance with the laser absorption spectrometer for volatiles and evolved gas, or Las Vegas.
All right, thanks. Welcome to Las Vegas on the moon. Las Vegas is the laser absorption spectrometer for volatiles and evolved gas. I want to start by acknowledging my team. They're exceptionally talented, experienced, and diverse, both from my institution at Southwest Research Institute, as well as Southwest Sciences, Ball Aerospace, Princeton, and Honeybee Robotics. Can't do it without all of these important players. Our operational goal is really quite simple. It's to determine the volatile composition of solid or gas samples. And I want to be clear here that the volatiles I'm talking about are true volatiles, not those that are bound to minerals that would require high amounts of heating in order to release. But if someone wants to bake those out for us, we'd be happy to look at the vapor that comes off, but that's not part of our baseline design. In the spirit of Las Vegas, I've made a gamble that the science of interest for doing this would have been covered by previous speakers, and I think that's paid off. So I'm not going to go into great detail on why we want to do this. We do have sort of three broad science goals. One is to establish the compositional state of the regolith, especially in the lunar polar regions and the permanently shadowed regions, but not necessarily exclusive to that. We want to understand the provenance of these compounds, endogenic and exogenic sources, volcanism, solar implantation, cometary delivery, so forth. And we also want to look at the abundance and suitability of material for ISRU. All these goals are traceable to various NASA strategic documents and League and National Academy and so forth. So our goals then flow down to our measurements, which are actually shown in this table here. If it's a bit of an eye chart, I encourage you to use WebEx to zoom in if you can and take a look at those. But there's a wide number of compounds that we're sensitive to. Our highest priority are water, methane, and CO2, because those tend to be also the most important for ISRU. But we can also look at isotopes, heavy water, isotopes of oxygen, and carbon-13 as well. And we can do that in various different compounds, so we don't have to rely on those measurements from just a single molecule, but we can look at how those vary across the compounds. And we're quite sensitive. If you look at the mass fraction column there for water, for example, we can get down to almost parts per trillion by mass. And you can see the sensitivity of the other compounds. So all of these, for the most part, fall within the measurement requirements needed by the stated various documents. And then the last thing is to look kind of at everything else. So nitrogen compounds, sulfur compounds, and various organics that may or may not be there. So how does this work? Well, we take a small sample.
2 minutes left.
Thanks, 5 milliliters or less. We ingest that into our sample acceptance system, which is by Honeybee, or we can take gas directly into that. We heat that sample just enough to melt it, so above 0°C, that releases the gases. Those flow through our dust mitigation system and then onward into a multi-pass optical cell. We then fire hypertunable lasers that cover a range from about 3.5 to 11 microns of wavelength. These are sequentially fired, not all at one time. This is where the magic happens, and I won't go into how that happens, but we pass those lasers through the gas. We develop a spectrum. And we can then invert that spectrum to determine the abundance of molecules. It's highly complementary to other compositional investigations. And just to wrap up a little bit, our resources we're quite small. It takes about 2 to 3 minutes to scan. Our current best estimate on power right now is 12 watts, so we require less than a watt hour of energy. We're 1.2 kilograms. We're quite small. You can see the dimensions there, smaller than a coffee can. And we can fit on pretty much the smallest missions, or even be handheld, hand carried by an astronaut. We're currently at TRL-4. We are funded by Matisse to do a icy moon version of this. We have Dolly funding to adapt it to the lunar specific requirements. So our sampling, our dust mitigation, some thermal issues, a new laser alignment module, and so forth. We expect to be, we should have been at TRL 5 by now, but COVID had other ideas, but we're working towards that. We should be at TRL 5 by the end of the year, and hopefully complete TRL 6 about a year or so after that. That's all I've got. Thank you for listening.
All right, thank you so much, Scott.